Hi guys, Pablo back with another video. And this time we are not hiking a trail. This time I want to take this opportunity to show you what I think are the minimum things that you should carry in your backpack when you go on a day hike. Of course, there are different types of trails and different regions where those trails are and different seasons of the year. All I'm doing is to give you some pointers or some suggestions that, of course, I will expect you adapt to your personal needs. So in order to make your life a little bit easier, this video is structured in different sections. In the first section, I'm going to talk about the clothing. In the second section, I will talk about food and water. In a third section, I will talk about orientation. In a fourth section, I will talk about first aid kits and health and safety in general. And finally, I will add at the end of this video a section where I propose or I suggest a few items or additional little tools that may make your hike a little bit more comfortable. In any case, let's start. Well, in this section, as I was saying before, I will talk about clothing. In my particular case, and that's what I would suggest, I use a layering system where the bottom layer is the t-shirt that I am wearing in this case. The middle layer will be a sweater or a jacket that will keep you warm when needed. And in the top layer, I will have a raincoat like this one. And the idea would be to add layers of clothing or take them out as the body is getting warmer and cooler. And in this particular point, I would like to make a suggestion, and is that when you start your day hike, I will strongly suggest you start with a layer less than the layer that you need. And the reason why I'm saying this is because around half an hour after you start a hike, it's very typical that you warm up, you break sweat, and you realize that you need one layer of clothing less than when you started. And that means that you have to stop, take your backpack out, take your extra layer of clothing and take it out, put it in a backpack, and you lose some time doing that. Whereas if you start your hike with one layer of clothing less than you need, you will not have that problem, and you will not lose time of the hike to put it back into the backpack. Other items of clothing that I think could be necessary include a cap if it is a sunny day, or a hat if it is a cooler or colder day. And also I will suggest, if you have the chance, to use this particular piece of clothing called buff, which is a very versatile piece of clothing. It's like a tube made of very elastic textile material, which could act as a scarf, as a hat, as a sweatband, as a wristband, and has many different uses. It is very light, it doesn't occupy a lot of space, and because of its versatility, I will personally recommend it. And of course, in addition to all this, if you are in a sunny, very sunny place, or if you are in a place full of snow and you need to protect your eyes, I will strongly suggest you bring sunglasses with you. And that completes the first part of this video devoted to clothing. Well, in this section of the video, I'm going to talk about water and about food. Concerning water, there are different ways of carrying your water with you, and I'm not going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of every single of those ways of carrying water with you. That probably will be the topic of another video, but I would like to mention that when I go on a hike, on a normal hike, day hike, I will bring with me at least 2 liters of water, no matter if there are fountains in the trail or not, and if the trail is particularly long or it goes through very hot areas in the summer days, I will bring with me 3 liters of water. In any case, I will personally recommend to bring less than 1 liter of water with you, no matter what hike are you doing. And concerning food, I normally bring with me 1 or 2 sandwiches. I bring with me these energy bars that I will eat during the trail. And also I bring with me as a backup food something that I find nutritious, but I don't particularly like. In my case, things like walnuts. The reason why I do that, this is a suggestion for me to you, is that because I don't particularly like that food in particular, I will tend to keep it in a backpack and I will not eat it until it is absolutely necessary. And there are cases where the hike is longer than expected, or maybe I got lost and I had to go back to the trail and I lost some time, or maybe I thought mistakenly that the mileage of the trail was a certain mileage, but after realizing that the trail is not a circular one as I thought, it was a linear one, I will have to walk much longer than I anticipated. That means that I will have to require a little bit extra food that I wasn't expecting to require, and in those cases things like this will be very useful for me, and I hope this is an idea that could be useful for you too, bringing some extra food that you don't particularly like but is very nutritious. Something else, an extra tip, could be to bring some sugar cubes with you, which when eaten release some very sudden energy. It doesn't last very long, but every little helps, right? So that ends the part of this video devoted to food. Well, we are in the section now devoted to orientation. As you know, in the channel there is a separate video where I talk about the different methodologies that you can use to avoid getting lost in the trail. But for this particular video, I will suggest two particularly important options. The first one is to use the phone with an application that transforms the phone into a GPS system and a track of the trail to use as a first method to avoid getting lost. A second method, always reliable, always trustworthy, is the use of a map and a compass. It doesn't have to be a fancy compass. One like this one will do the job perfectly fine. And the point of this map is to act as a backup in case that first system fails. Of course, the map can be bought pretty much in any bookshop in the area, and they are relatively cheap. But if money is a problem, you can always have the chance to go into internet, download the map and print it and bring it with you. And that way you will have two methods. If one fails, you will have the other method to make sure that you go back to your car safely. In addition to all this, and as a kind of suggestion, I would say that it will probably be good if you study the trail before you start the trail. In particular, I think that there are two pieces of information that could be very useful. The first one is to know if there are fountains in the trail and where are those fountains located. The second one, the second piece of information that I think is very useful is to have an idea of the landmarks that you are going to pass through and the distance and the time it will take to get to those landmarks. By landmarks, I mean those lakes, fountains, houses, monuments, peaks that are very easy to identify and that will let you know if you are following the right path or not. If you were expecting to get to that landmark 1 hour ago and you didn't get to that landmark or the next one, that's a good indication that you are probably getting lost, and you should consider trace your steps back to the point where you thought you got lost. And of course, goes without saying, the fact that a trail has a fountain doesn't necessarily mean that that fountain will have flow of water. It may be a dry one, so expect that too. And now we go to the next section. Well, and we arrive to the section where I talk about first aid kits. Of course, there are different first aid kits with more or less content, and what I try to do is to make a quick one with some things that I have in the house that could be some sort of reference, especially for the people that are starting to go hiking and are unsure about what to carry. I made this particular first aid kit, which contains disinfectant, some gauzes and plasters, antihistaminic cream for insect bites, ibuprofen, some disposable gloves, especially useful in those cases where you have to touch wounds and you don't want to contaminate them, and finally tweezers, which are in this particular case together with the plasters, which are very useful in things like eliminating ticks and splinters or even thorns from your skin. Very useful. And now we go to the next section. Well, for this last section, I wanted to mention some accessories which I thought could be very useful if you are going on a day hike. Well, the first item I wanted to show you is this headlamp, because it may be the case that you have to go back to your car or to the end point of the trail in the darkness, or maybe you are in areas that are particularly dark, like tunnels, caves, very thick forest areas, or you need light to see either the contents of your backpack or to read the map. In any of those cases, a headlamp, which is very light, doesn't occupy a lot of space in a backpack, can be extremely useful. So for that reason, I would recommend you bring one of these with you. A second tool I will recommend you to bring with you is one of these blankets, first aid blankets. It's pretty much the same reason. Having a blanket like this, which is extremely cheap, easy, affordable, light, and doesn't occupy a lot of space, can save your life, especially obviously in those cases where you need to keep warm, maybe because you have a wound and you are waiting to get rescued, or because you finally have to spend the night in a place where the temperature suddenly drop down and you need to make sure that you don't get frozen. One of these things can save your life, so consider bringing one with you. Another thing that can save your life is one of these lighters, because you never know. It may be the case that you need to warm yourself up or cook some food, or you're in a situation where you have no other option but to light a fire for your own survival. I know that in many areas it's forbidden, absolutely forbidden, to light a fire. I'm just saying this. Keep this in the backpack, because you never know, it may save your life. And finally, one last bit of kit that I would suggest you consider bringing in your backpack is an external battery bank. As you know, the smartphones nowadays do not have a long battery life, and having one of these battery banks will ensure that at least you have a few extra hours of phone usage, either when you use it as a GPS system or when you need to communicate with somebody and to speak to them urgently, or you need to make a very important phone call, for instance, to a rescue team. In those cases, having this particular battery bank could prove very useful. An additional idea would be to bring in your backpack one of those dumb phones that have a battery which, when fully charged, will last you 4 days. If the battery of your phone dies, you can always take the SIM card, insert it in that dumb phone, and then use it to make whatever phone call you need to use, or to keep in contact with whatever you need to keep in contact. Another thing to consider. In any case, we have finished the video. I hope you found this video useful in any way, and if that is the case, please do not forget to subscribe, like and share. And again, I would like to finish this video by emphasizing this is just meant to be some sort of reference, specifically targeted to people that are thinking about starting to hike on day hikes, or have started hiking recently and are unsure about the things that they can bring in their backpack in their day hikes. This is not supposed to be a very comprehensive list, just a video that you can use as a reference. In any case, I hope you enjoyed the video, and see you in the next one. Take care, bye bye.